So let's get started. This is something I have seen a lot. I totally suck at summaries, but please read my story anyway. It's really, really good. Who in here would read this story? Who would click on this? I mean, they're begging. Come on. Oh, you would? You're so nice.
500 reviews.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. You might want to look at those reviews first. I've done that, and I'm like, wait, they're all by the same person. You know, this doesn't really tell us anything about the story.
Right.
This is bad. Because as much as you beg, as much as you plead, nobody is really going to be interested in clicking on that story because.
I think to go along with what you're saying, it's like, you know, walking into a bookstore, picking up a book, reading the back of the book, and saying, please read my book because it's good.
Absolutely. Right. I don't know any professional authors who would do that because nobody would do it. They might be like, oh, well, never mind. It's the same thing with this. So we want to make our summaries look really good. So how do we get someone to look at our summary and think, hey, I want to read that. That looks awesome. Well, that's what we'll find out. We're going to cover a few things. Conjunctions, introductory clauses. I know this is starting to sound like an English class, but I swear it's okay. We're going to whiz by it. We'll be okay. Considering your audience, labeling correctly, and some other things to consider when writing your summary. So starting out with conjunctions. And, but, so, for, yet, and nor. Those are some conjunctions, and they come out pretty useful. Basically, we're going to cover the scenario is the X but Y scenario and the X yet Y scenario. In this, X is what is generally believed, but Y is going to challenge that belief. So let's take a look at some examples here. Light believed the death note gave him power equal to a god, but, and there's our conjunction there, notice there's a comma there, that's a very important thing. He is about to learn otherwise. So that first part of our sentence is pretty much things we already know. We know Light thinks that he's awesome and he's invincible. But, in the story, he's about to learn otherwise. We don't know how he's going to learn otherwise, but he is going to learn otherwise. And if you click on the chapter, you will find out more. Another example, Hiro followed all of his orders faithfully, yet when he stumbles on some secret information, can he still continue in the same way? Anybody who knows Gundam Wing knows that Hiro pretty much follows his orders faithfully for at least the beginning of the series. Yet, he stumbles on some secret information. We don't know what information this is. You don't want to give your reader all of that. You're just kind of letting them know, oh, there's some secret information. You know, it could be a new TV channel for all we know. Can he continue in the same way? I don't know. Click to find out. More conjunctions. I love these things. The X and Y scenario. You're going to use and to affirm something in a way as to lead your reader into the story. So an example of that is, Nausicaa had been looking for a specific part of the toxic forest, and when she found it, she discovered more than what she expected. We know that Nausicaa is anybody who knows this anime knows that she visits the toxic forest, she looks around, so we're affirming that she was in a part of the toxic forest, and when she found it, the specific part, she discovered more than what she expected. We don't know what that is. We're going to find out in the story, but it gives the potential reader some idea of what's going on and a little bit of mystery. If only English class in school was this great. Introductory clauses. These generally start out with words like when, while, because, if, since, etc. Not etc., but introductory clauses are dependent clauses that provide background information or set the stage for the main part of the sentence, the independent clause. An example of that, and there you can see at the beginning, there is our when. When Yuki decides to go on tour with Shuichi, comma is great because you're separating the two parts of these sentences. He finds himself having more fun than he possibly could have dreamed. Another example, and you can see our introductory clause is starting out with while snooping around in Colonel Mustang's office, comma, again that's going to separate those two parts, Ed finds something that changes his view of the man forever. So we know that he's snooping around, that seems kind of Ed-like, and he finds something that changes his view. We don't know what that is, but we will find out. if we read it. Consider your audience. When you're writing your summary, you want to consider who your audience is going to be. What types of people do you want to read your story? What types of people are you writing your story for? Because not everybody is going to enjoy the same type of story. Yes?
Yeah, for instance, when I go through the Gundam Wing Fix, I keep trying to sift out the yaois and non-yaois.
Exactly. And that comes into this next part. Label correctly, because some people are going to look for yaoi fic. Some people are not going to want to read that. And you sift through it, and a lot of people I'm sure do. So if you put that on your summary, you're more likely to get the people who want to read that type of story to read it, and the people who do not want to read that type of story to not read it. And that's a good thing, because people who don't want to read those types of stories might leave you a flame, and then you'll be emo and you'll lie to your friends. Come on, you know you've seen it. But label correctly. If it's an angsty fic, if it's a happy fic, if it's a fluffy fic, put that on there. If there's a certain pairing, put that on there, because you're going to attract readers who want to read that, because there is so much fan fiction out there, especially if you're looking at fanfiction sites like fanfiction.net or mediamiter.org. They have a bazillion fics, and they're going through all the time, and your potential reader has a lot of stories to choose from. So label your stories correctly, and that will help your potential readers find your story. Some other things to consider. Please review. This is not the time to put this in your summary. They haven't even read your story yet. They haven't even clicked on the chapter. Don't ask for reviews. That's not the time. Title may change. If your title is going to change, or if you suspect that it will change in the future, hold out on posting that story, because a lot of times, if people like your story, they will associate it by the title name. And if you change it, not a lot of people actually bother to look at the summary when it comes to their inbox. It's sad, but it's true. Chapter whatever number is up. We know you've updated it. The number on the chapters has changed. It's okay. Don't waste your summary space, because you only have so much summary space on there. My first fanfic. Those are scary words, because I don't know about you, but I've read a lot of first fanfics, and while they're great for first tries, sometimes you're just not looking for that. You're looking for a seasoned writer, or you've read enough first fanfics to know that usually they're not what you're looking for. They're not, the quality isn't quite up there, because they're not as experienced. So don't put that on there. Let your readers read it and judge for themselves, because there's already going to be that prejudgment there of, oh, this is their first fanfic. Please read. Again, you don't need a beg, because nobody cares about that. Read to find out more. Yes, we know. Yes?
And I think one other one that we avoid is, well, I mean, if you're going to put this in, don't even bother writing. I'm flunking remedial English.
Yes.
I mean, I read the fic, it looks like a dictionary threw up. Please don't even bother writing.
Yeah. All right, any other questions or comments on that part? No? All right, English class was successful. Yay. In chapter, all right, we are going to cover a few things in here. Self-dialogue, disclaimers, font position, paragraph style, chapter heading, screenplay format, downing your own story, begging for reviews, placement of author's notes, and emoticons. Self-dialogue. I think we've seen this, at least I have seen this in many stories. Sometimes it tends to be just a few lines, sometimes it's longer than the story. Some people are going to really enjoy this. Generally, this type of thing, the self-dialogue, is where the author is conversing with the characters, or they'll have the characters just conversing together, and then they'll pop themselves in there. I have found that younger writers tend to do this a lot, and talking to a lot of older, mature writers, and writers who have been writing for a long time, or readers who have been reading for a long time, they seem to find that they are finding that a lot of younger readers and a lot of younger writers do this type of thing, and a lot of younger people enjoy this. That's not to say that older people don't. But when you have a reader who has been around for a while and they find this in your story, they might just turn around and go away without even bothering to read your story, because they've already made a prejudgment. And whether that's fair or not, that's what happens. Disclaimers. I do not own One Piece, and I make no money from this fan fiction. This is not technically something that's going to prevent people from enjoying your story. A lot of, there's a few sites like adultfanfiction.net, which requires you to have a disclaimer. Having a disclaimer will not stop somebody from suing you. I know it seems that it will, but legally it won't. That you're using their material, you have no right to technically use their material. But most people, they really don't care unless they're Anne Rice. But some people will call you out on this. I've done it on a few of mine. I don't really do it on my own, and I've only had one person mention it, and I told them, sorry.
Everybody knows you don't own it.
Yeah, we know that if I owned it, Fullmetal Alchemist would definitely be going a different way. All right, centering your font. Some people, I have seen this in a few stories, and it's really difficult on the eyes. The reason being is because your eyes want to come back to a set point on the side of the screen. But with centering your font, you don't actually have that. It jumps around a lot, and it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it does actually cause a lot of eye strain over time, and especially if you're writing your story like this, you're going to find that you're getting a lot more eye strain, but your readers are not necessarily going to want to read a story like this, so probably sticking with the normal, boring left or right or whatever, I have no left, right, to the side is probably the best thing to do. Also, if you're posting on sites like LiveJournal where you can change the font color and the font type, it's best to stick with black. Other colors are neat and they're fun, but they generally do cause some eye strain after a while.
Bright pink.
Bright pink is one of those you do not want to use. And different fonts, usually you want to stick with the regular fonts like New Times Roman or Arial or Verdana.
Now, of course I can't always do this, but I like to switch between news time and Arial. I'm switching like from a present time to a flashback.
That works. I know some people will do that. They'll italicize like maybe the past and stuff, and that's perfectly fine as long as people kind of recognize that that's what you're doing. And I think that by reading your story, they would recognize that. It's just if you are using some weird fonts like say Comic Sans. I don't know, some people do use it, or I don't know, Papyrus. Don't use Papyrus for your fanfic.
Don't use Comic Sans either.
Huh?
Don't use Comic Sans.
I agree, definitely.
If you really want to leave them, use symbol.
If you're gonna use
i.e. Greek.
Font, use it for your title.
Absolutely. Yes. Or something special that you want to stand out. Yeah. Exactly. Paragraph formatting. A lot of people like to try to do theirs in book style, where it's all kind of together, but you have that indent at the beginning of your paragraph. This is okay for books, because your books are like this big, and you turn the pages, but when you're on a computer, if you have a widescreen, it's even worse, because then you just have this huge, big blob of font, and it's kind of overwhelming. Some people are still going to do this, that's fine, but there are some people who will look at your chapter and they will go back, because it is daunting. There's this big block of text, and it can be untidy and overwhelming to the senses. A lot of people that you see online generally do block style, and it works really well for online formatting, because you have your paragraphs separated out. It's very neat. You can find your place if you have to go and answer the door or feed your cat or something like that. You can easily find your way back. It also, it just helps you be able to, your brain can actually, I don't know the word I'm looking for, it escaped my mind, but process, thank you. Your brain processes that actually a lot better.
Now, if you're writing in block style, when a character speaks, usually when you're using a word, when a character says something, you usually have to end that on a paragraph. You usually have to end that paragraph when the character talks. Like, if they have to say one line of dialogue, you just start on another block.
Yes.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes, I read too many fanfics. I have comments that they put more than one speaker in the same paragraph. I said it's very hard to sometimes tell them what it is.
Yes.
Now, by the way, is it still is it okay to indent with block or?
You know, you can, but it looks kind of weird. You really don't,
Okay.
the necessity for it is not there because you already have that space in between.
Ah.
I don't know if anybody was able to hear her comment and what both of these people were talking about, but when you are writing dialogue, you don't want this two different characters to be in the same paragraph. If one is going to talk, even if they're saying hi, you go to the next paragraph and then the other person can say whatever they're saying. If you put it together, it can be confusing. Thank you so much for bringing up that point. Yes?
I tend to also kind of put written dialogue together sometimes with two characters talking together, just because it gets really tedious to say, who stole the cookies from the cookie jar? So-and-so said. I didn't steal the cookies from the cookie jar, so-and-so said.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, it's easier for me to like group it together by saying, who stole the cookies from the cookie jar? I didn't steal it. Well, somebody did. I don't know.
That's
Yeah.
right.
To make it go faster. to
That
not
you
lose
don't
the
always
pace.
have to say so-and-so said.
Yeah.
You can just have the dialogue be a sentence as long as the reader understands who's speaking.
Yeah, if you're just going back and forth, beep, beep,
So-and-so
beep, beep,
said,
beep.
If somebody else starts speaking,
If you
you
don't
change
listen.
the pattern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just I kind of don't want to lose the pace. If it's a fast conversation, I don't want to slow it down by saying he said, she said, he said,
Yeah.
she said.
Absolutely.
Although I've heard some people get confused and as soon as they lose track who said what.
Right, absolutely. Chapter headings. These are really great to have. They're not necessary. I've seen a lot of really great writers, they don't use them. But chapter headings are really nice because they add some consistency to it. They give it a little nice break before your chapter. It looks very nice and professional, but you don't have to use it. Nobody's going to call you out on that.
It's a good place to hide the disclaimer.
Sorry?
It's a good place to hide that useless disclaimer.
Exactly. Screenplay format. I have seen this several times. I don't personally read this. I have talked to several people when preparing this panel, and most of them, not all, but most of them felt that this wasn't really the type of thing they wanted to read online because they wanted to submerge themselves into a story. But when you have just the screenplay format where, oh, this is what they're doing, that's what they're doing, you're not getting the imagery, you're not getting a lot of, just being able to, it's like having a piece of cake. You can look online at a piece of cake, and the cake is still there, but it's different if you have the cake in front of you and you can eat it. And this is like being able to see the cake online, but you're not really being able to enjoy it to its fullness.
Yeah, I remember it was like it's kind of way hiatus right, but there was one series I read online, and essentially the whole plot is Rama and Akane go to college, and most of the chapters are written in a script format, but there's two chapters they felt prose was better because in prose you can go more into one's emotions in their mind or what and such. Okay. Although I have read too many fanfics of which they don't know, people just don't know the difference between prose and script, and they're intermixed, and it just
That's true.
is so awkward, it is so awful, and I mean, I read, sometimes it reads like, I knew more how to write in kindergarten than these people do.
Well, the thing is that everybody's going to be at different levels, and that's really the nice thing about fan fiction is that hopefully it's a safe place to practice your writing, to get hopefully helpful feedback from people, and people who are at a more advanced stage of writing, I definitely think it's really great if they are able to give some good feedback to newer writers who are just starting out or may not know as much.
And on that note, like if you're going to give feedback to somebody who doesn't write very well, don't just say you suck.
Absolutely.
Give them
I feel like
constructive criticism for crying out loud.
Absolutely, and
Sometimes I don't know how.
because they kind of know they suck.
Yeah.
They're putting themselves out there. They're hoping for help. They're hoping for some validation. They want somebody to say that it looks good. So, anyway, what screenplay format is actually good for is if you want to write up your story this way before you post it so that you can have your dialogue, you can have the gist, and then you can go from there to actually write out your actual story and fill that out. This is actually excellent for that. Downing your own story. This is a huge pet peeve of mine. I really didn't like how this turned out, but I thought I'd post it anyway. Or the first 5 chapters sucked. I think it's better after that. Truthfully, if you think it sucks, why do I want to read it?
Right.
I mean, that is the big question. Don't tell people your story sucks. Even if you think it sucks, you're putting it out there for the world to read. Let your reader make their own assumption, because if it really sucks, they will definitely think it sucks. It's okay, you don't need to tell them. But you know what? They might think it's really awesome. I know I've written some stories and I have thought, oh man, this is just the worst story. Nobody's gonna read this, or nobody's gonna comment on it. And then people liked it. I was like, really? What did you like?
Although I haven't posted it yet, I remember like last year I made pet peeves, intentionally made a bad fanfic, you know, with the group. And when we posted, said, go ahead, please flame this thing for all the sake of good fan fiction.
Funny. And sir, you had a question or a comment?
I rough draft my fan fiction before I write them out on the computer, and I give it to my friends to read them. And I say, at first I say, personally, in my opinion, I don't like how it turned out, but I'll let you be the judge. If you have anything in which I can make it better, please tell me so I can fix up on it.
That's great.
I say the more
Yes.
I say the more people, the more friends you have that read your writing, and the more people that like criticize your writing first before you post it, the better you're gonna feel about it when you finally post it on the internet.
Absolutely. I know my beta is, he's hard on me. I've sent my latest chapter, I sent him, and he sent it back and he says, truthfully, this sucks. I'm like, oh. He actually used some explicit words that I can't use here, but. Begging and threatening readers for reviews. I'm not going to update until I have X number of reviews. Or I know people are reading because of my stats. Why aren't you reviewing? All right. Well, for the bottom one, if you're looking at, say, fanfiction.net, they only record how many people actually click on that. They could have clicked on that by mistake. They might have clicked on it and hated it. There's a lot of reasons why they might not be reviewing, but you might have a large number of hits. And the first one, I personally think it's very low class to hold out chapters against your readers if you're not getting so many reviews that you may want, because you're probably getting reviews. If you're getting some reviews, you're going to make your reviewers feel like crap, and you're going to make them feel like they're not important. Well, why should we continue to review your story? And you might get reviews. Some people might put them up there, but they're not going to be honest reviews. So this is definitely something you should not put in there. I know several people who will actually stop reading a story that they like because of this.
I do that.
Right.
So why don't people review? Well, there's a lot of reasons. They might be too busy. Their life schedule may have changed. They might not have anything good to say. You know, if you don't have anything good, say nothing at all. They might be a lurker. Most of fandom are lurkers. The people that you see online in your fandom, they are the noisy minority. Most people in fandom are lurkers. They're not going to comment on your stories. That's just the way it is. Some people are afraid of an author's reaction. They may have commented on someone's story in the past, and the author may have ripped into them, and they were trying to be helpful, but the author didn't take it well, and they just figured, you know, why should I review? Because I don't want people to be mean to me. Only reviews at the end of the story. I know several people who they like to read through the whole story. If you don't finish your story, you're not getting any reviews from them. Clicked on the story, but they didn't read. They don't want to be repetitive. Some people, sometimes all they have to say is, great story, I liked it, but they don't want to keep saying that because they feel like they sound stupid. The author doesn't answer reviews. Some people, they like their authors to be communicative with them. They like the authors to reply, and if they're not getting replies from the author, then they feel like, oh, well, the author didn't appreciate my review, and that goes into a completely different bag of worms that we're not actually going to cover here. The author doesn't accept anonymous reviews. Some people just don't want to log in. If you're on, say, fanfiction.net or mediaminer.org or even, say, LiveJournal or different sites that you can post fiction, some people have it where they can't accept anonymous reviews, and that's the author's choice, but at that same time, you might not get as many reviews as you'd like. Some people are no longer in the fandom. Sometimes you'll have a reviewer who reviews consistently and suddenly they stop. It could be because they're no longer in the fandom. They've moved on. And that happens a lot in fandom. So what can you say? Because we want people to review, we want feedback. Us writers are attention whores. Please review. This is a nice little simple phrase that you can use at the end of your story. It's not begging, it's just, hey, please review. Comments appreciated, that's just letting them know, I appreciate your comments. Comments make me happy. Just a little line that says, hey, remember review. That'd be great. Don't put no flames. The reason why I say this is because
They will.
they will flame just because you put no flames.
There are trolls out there.
There are trolls,
Yeah.
exactly.
And like I said, like one of my finger says, no flames. Look at it. As I said, they didn't know the difference between prose and script. It just read awful, and I, of course, myself, I actually put this in my this like a forward of mine. I just say, yeah, go ahead, bring it on.
Absolutely. And you, sir?
I just find that kind of redundant that people put down no flames. 'Cause
Yeah.
Whether you do it or not, either way, you're going to be flamed.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, it
It's
goes back
unavoidable.
to that thing you said about don't down your own fan fiction. If you're saying don't flame me, it's an admittance that you think you probably will be flamed.
Yeah.
Absolutely, sir.
I'm just curious, do you have any idea, like, I post all my stuff on fanfiction.net, and fanfiction.net, you get emails when there's someone like favorites you or gives you a review. Have you noticed, like, you get a lot more favorites than you do get reviews? Or?
I've disabled some of that. I've disabled any notifications because where they have favorited the story or favorited the me as an author, and I only have the review sent to me. I have reviews. Yes.
Going back to that, I've noticed that I do get more favorites than I do get reviews, but I'm also I don't post anymore. But like some of my one-shots for FMA, I'll get a favorite story on it, but I won't get reviews, and no biggie.
Also, I've never written any, but I like reading them. And I tend to favorite instead of review when I know I'll just say, good job, you did great, because
Right.
I see no point in taking the time to review that favorite,
Right.
but adding it as favorite's good enough.
Right, because then they know that you liked it because you favorited it. Absolutely. Does that kind of answer your question? And it goes back to a lot of people are lurkers, and some people in fandom are really, really shy. So, and they just kind of keep to themselves. So, if you are seeing a lot more favorites than actual reviews, take it as a compliment. Take it as we liked your story. We just kind of don't have anything else to say.
It's very common on DeviantArt with fan art too, for favorites rather than reviews, which personally I would prefer a favorite.
It still makes my day.
Yeah, comments are great. We all like them.
Each word.
And we all like favorites. All right, author's notes. Put these before or after your story. Don't put them in the middle. That breaks the flow of your story. It doesn't matter how tactfully you've tried to put them in there or tried to explain something. Put them after your story or before. You can put a little number by an area, and then they'll know that section it goes toward maybe a specific note that you want. But I was a beta for someone, and they were in the habit of putting notes in the middle of their story, and I had never seen that before, and I was like, no, stop doing this. It just takes me out of the story.
Yeah. And I say, besides, that's the way professional writers do. Like Arthur C. Clarke's book, 3001.
Absolutely.
It had, superscript footnotes in at the end of this thing.
Absolutely. Emoticons.
Ah.
Just say no. These have no place in your story. If these are in your story, I will immediately, I don't care how good your story is, as a reader, I will turn around and go away, because this should not be in your story. You should be able to at least write that the character was sad and that they were frowning instead of putting a frowny face. Even in your author's notes, try not to use a lot of emoticons. A little smiley or a little frowny face maybe, but don't go all out because it looks cluttered. It doesn't look very good.
Now, what about some of these fanfics I read that it actually has characters I am one another?
I think that that's different because they're doing an instant messaging that is part of the story. If you're actually
Right.
instant messaging on your own computer, you would use those, but that's an exception to the rule.
Right.
And sir?
You pretty much just answered my question. I was going to ask, what if you're writing a story and two characters are texting one another? But you pretty much just answered my question, so.
Absolutely. And if you don't want to use emoticons, you can always put, you can write it down in the dialogue, say maybe, I'm gonna use FMA because that's the fan I'm in. You know, Roy was texting Ed and noticed that Ed put a little smiley face. We're not putting the smiley face, but we're having the character notice that Ed used a certain emoticon. So any other comments and questions about this? Or did we cover everything? Yeah? All right. Well, we'll move on then. We are flying by. My goodness. Technical details and betas. This is a great section. I don't usually get to get here. This probably looks a little over-exaggerated. You can probably make out what this says, but it's painful.
Right.
Painful to read. You can see a lot of mistakes there. Some of these are very common mistakes. I just kind of lumped them all together in one horrifying slide.
Right.
Ma'am?
Most sites nowadays, most computers nowadays have a lovely little device called Spellchecker.
Absolutely.
Yes. However,
You still
I've
have
noticed-
to be careful with that. Not as much.
yeah, however, I noticed, like in the first sentence, they misspelled does as dose. And unfortunately, these and homonyms I've seen as very notorious in fanfics that because they're spelled correctly and they go past the spell checker. So here's where you need actual people to do.
I hate the
And
word.
unfortunately, though, I did point this to a writer, and he did rip on me, saying that, says you have to do more than going to use a spell checker. How do you know I didn't use a spell checker? Says, well, I said in Final Effect, well, whatever you did, I mean, even if you did do more than a spell checker, you still had to go a step further
Right.
because your homonyms.
Right. If
Incidentally, though, even though actually after that, his spelling did get better.
You know, sometimes you have to be careful in the way that you present yourself in comments because writers can be, I'll get you in just one second, writers can be very protective about their work because this is something that they did, and that's not validating them ripping on you.
Right.
But, so if you're going to pick out mistakes, definitely try to throw out lots of love and
Right.
and then put that in there. Not everybody is going to even take that well, but at least it will help cushion the, this you need to work on. Ma'am?
I started reading this fanfiction, and it had a good plot, sort of.
Yeah.
That's sounding hopeful.
Good enough that, I was bored, I could keep reading, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But as I read, there were so many grammar mistakes and so many spelling mistakes that it was really, really hard to read. So in comments, it's saying, you have a good base, why don't you try and fix it up a little? I mean, it's really
Right.
good. And then she came back at me saying, like, you know what, I don't care what you say. My fic is the best, there it is. And I only do this for fun. I don't need to check it for spelling and grammar. And then I wrote back, well, actually do, because it's a rule of the site that you actually need to
Yeah.
base my
Sir, back here?
Yeah, I just have to comment. When I'm reading fanfiction, I don't mind if there's like one or two mistakes just by pure accident.
Right.
The author didn't proofread it all that well. But
Absolutely.
there'll be some I read and I count all the mistakes and they do it like 11 number of times and stuff. And it's like, dude, come on. You got to at least try.
In the
Right.
back, in the soup?
Well, as an author, I would say try not to get defensive. If someone points out something,
Right.
they're usually trying to be helpful. They're not trying to be jerks, most of them.
Absolutely. Ed in the front?
And also, it's important to make sure that you can spell the word right because of the context. I knew someone who wrote raped instead of wrapped.
Absolutely. I'm going to get you, sir, and then you, okay? So, sir, in the back. Oh, no, you, in the middle. Sorry.
Okay. I know that I've seen this a couple times where it wasn't actually that they're terrible with spelling and grammar and that because they just don't care. once or twice I've seen that it happened because English is their second language, and
Yes.
for them, their fan fiction is like an exercise for them to improve their English.
Absolutely.
And when I reviewed them, and my reviews are terrible, they're always like hugely long. I point out these little things they can do to improve. That's why I don't review often. But and they really appreciated that I'd gone through and helped them with these little things. But I was really gentle about it. It's like you got to be aware that some people they just don't speak English first language.
Absolutely.
And sometimes when you're using the spell checker, you also have to be careful when you're doing that. Like what my friend mentioned is that sometimes the spell checker doesn't cover all this stuff. The most common word that I see misspelled or misused all the time is lose. It's always spelled with 2 O's, and it's only spelled with 1. If you're using lose as in you lost something instead of loose as in you loosed a knot or something like that, yeah, that's the most common misspelled word I've seen in the internet.
Absolutely.
And yet, because I've read some fanfics and I get a response saying, "Oh, never mind that. How's the story?" If like saying, "Well, it's their bad grammar is very distracting." And I read some fics. I said back, "I'm sorry, your grammar is so horrible. I cannot tell what's going on."
Absolutely.
And I feel like it's just like the language dynamics. People judge you by the words you use. People will judge you by your intelligence, by your grammar. And if I read like, oh, this is just some guy who's just maybe doodling his manga, and not paying attention to somebody's stuff in class. I mean,
Absolutely.
So.
Ma'am, in the back.
Well, I think you have to also be aware that there are troll figs out there that they purposely spell things all crazy. And they use stupid emoticons just out there. And you kind of just need to ignore them as much as you can, or else they can start inflating more, and that just gets out of hand.
That's a great point. I saw a few other hands back here. Ma'am?
Oh.
Yes. With the are the ears?
Well, I was just going to say, we used to have to do, like, when we were doing critiques in, like, our speech classes and stuff, one of the good rule of thumb they said is put 3 positive comments and then a critique comment, which helps soften, say, these are the things I like, and if you did this, it would make it better. So that's kind of a good rule of thumb. You need to put a critique down.
Absolutely. Sir, did you have I saw that your hand, nope, the one in the brown. Yes, did you have something to say?
It was, I see there, and there.
Oh,
Get mixed
okay.
up all the time.
Yes, absolutely.
It's...
Your
and two.
Yeah, I mean,
English is a pain.
it's been we said it emphasized before, and we'll just say it. Let's leave it again. Remember, after your spell checker, still beta read because homonyms will go by.
Absolutely, definitely. Are there any more comments before we go on? Oh, we got everyone. That's great. All right. So, and we've covered a lot of stuff even before we've gotten into the section, which is actually fantastic. We're just going to go over, technical details, capitalization, grammar, punctuation, spelling, word usage. We're not actually going to go into this, but we've covered it all just before we even got here. We've seen a lot of, we've all seen different word usages in the wrong area, wrong spelling, the wrong punctuation, the wrong grammar, and capitalization. I think grammar especially is very difficult, and punctuation in particular are very hard for unseasoned writers or younger writers. What is a beta reader? A beta reader is a person who reads a work of fiction with a critical eye, with the aim of improving grammar, spelling, characterization, and general style of a story prior to its release to the general public. I totally snagged this from fanfiction.net. All right, so do you need a beta? This is a great question, and I have heard comments, not in this room, but online, covering both, because some people, like she was saying, the person that she commented to was like, I don't need a beta. And some people don't really feel like they need a beta. And some people are like, no, you should have a beta. Everyone should have a beta. I personally, give me a second. I personally have some stories betaed and some stories I don't. It just depends on how much I actually care about the story. Yes, sir.
Because there's so many times I send my fanfic to my beta. It comes back, and I see, and I go through make mistakes, and then I find some mistakes that she missed while I'm fixing the ones.
Absolutely.
So there you are. Because nobody's perfect.
True. All right, so what should you look for in a beta if you want one? Well, they should have the same taste in genres. If you like angst and you find someone who really likes fluff, it might not work out. It might not be a match made in heaven. Good grasp on the language. If you're writing your story in Spanish, get someone who is a native Spanish speaker. If you're writing it in English, get a native English speaker. Just because they're native doesn't mean that they, but you know, somebody that really has a good grasp. If you can find someone who maybe has gone to school for it or who is a seasoned writer, those are excellent things. Who knows your anime? This is Fushigi Yugi. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it. It's an older anime. She is. Oh, excellent, excellent. If you're writing Fushigi Yugi fic, and say, you right there, you don't know Fushigi Yugi, and if I was writing about Tamahome and Miyaka, you wouldn't be able to tell me if their characterization was off. I mean, that just...
Unless
you
you
would
look them up on Wiki.
Absolutely, but even then, if you've never seen the anime, if you're not familiar with it, you're just not going to have that grasp. Also know, this isn't up there, but know what you want from your beta. Do you want your beta to help you with characterization? Do you want them to help you with spelling and punctuation? And, you know, no, because sometimes some people want one, some people want the other, and some people want, I can't read that.
5 minute warning.
5? Oh, yeah, 5 minutes. Just keep that in mind, and when you're talking to a potential beta, ask them how they beta best. Because I personally don't like people to help me with my actual story. This is my story, you can help me with punctuation, you can help me with grammar, you can even help me with a few little characterization things, but don't mess with my story. So everyone's different. Find a beta who is able to execute a plot and characterization well, hopefully someone who is a writer themselves, someone who is dependable. If you send your story to them and they don't get it back to you for 2 months, that is bad. That's not dependable. So how do you find a beta? You can ask a friend. I know several of you mentioned that, having a friend do that. The only drawback is your friend may not want to hurt your feelings, and so they might not give you the best critique that you could get, but having friends do it is excellent. Contact another author. If you have an author that you particularly like, you like their work, you think they are great, contact them. They may not be accepting people to beta for, but they may. They may say, well, let me take a look and see what you got. I might be able to do something for you. They may not, but you never know until you ask. Google for sites and communities dedicated to finding a beta. They are out there. Look on sites like fanfiction.net and mediumwriter.org. They do have betaing things that you can sign up to be a beta, and I know especially fanfiction.net in the recent years has done really well on that. And final questions and answers?
And again, like with the, I go to fanfiction.net, I go through the beta deals, and then of course I go see and I read some of their work, and then I make sure it's
Absolutely.
Work first.
That's a good.
Because again, yeah, I mean, someone who's really into yaoi is not going to like what I write.
Right. Or they might, but they might just not be into it. You know, for
Right.
some people, they like both or whatever. But
Right.
I totally see what you're going for. Any other questions or comments before we have to vacate the room? No? All right, well, thank you so much for coming. Oh, yes.
Yeah, I just have a comment. I really like how you did the PowerPoint slides because so many people just botch PowerPoint, but I think you did a really good job.
That's so nice. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming. I hope you have a great day here at Anime Banzai.